Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next Foreman community demo. Your host Ken Gilvin here as always, and I've still got this horrible cough, I'm afraid, so if I collapse in a heap of coughing, I will be all right, but you just have to give me a minute. I'll try and mute, it's fine, but if it all goes quiet, it's because I'm coughing in the background. So we have not a huge amount of content for you today, I'm afraid. It turns out quite a few of the people, the sort of regulars, are on vacation or public holidays today. So a lot of people not able to show what they've been working on, even though they have been working on stuff. But hopefully this means we'll have a much bigger demo for you next time. We'll just roll it all forward into that. But we do have a little bit for you. We have a few things for me to talk about. We have a couple of presenters to show what they've been working on. And then I think that's not going to take a huge amount of time. So we're going to do a bit of an AMA, Ask Me Anything. I put this out on Twitter earlier, but I appreciate it's short notice. So for those of you watching live, for those of you who are coming in and just joining us now, feel free to drop any questions you want to ask into the chat, into either YouTube chat or into IRC, and I will pick those questions up when we get to the end of the show. As usual, the usual things to be aware of. You can interact with us, as I say, on the YouTube chat or on IRC. Remember to up the quality on your video because we can't control the default and it's always terrible. So you'll have a much better time watching what's going on. So things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about 1.16. It is finally out. The first release candidate is out. Daniel pushed it out last week. So if you haven't already had a look at it and you want to, then do get onto that, because I really want to see what people think of it. It's obviously been a long time coming, where basically a whole release out. 1.17 was supposed to be out now, according to the schedule we laid down at the start of the year. So we've skipped a whole 3 months trying to get 1.16 out. And there's lots of reasons for that. We can talk a little bit about that maybe. But we are where we are. And the release candidate is out, and we want to make it nice and solid. There's nothing worse than waiting a long time for something only for it to be rubbish. So please come and help us make it amazing. I'm sure it will be amazing because we have great people working on it, but you know, the more testing we get, the better. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Last demo, we talked a little bit about the vertical navigation, and we put a survey out about that as well, and a way for you to go and play with it. So I'll give you the results of that. We've got some content from Andrea and from Sebastian talking about plugins, talking about proxies. And then, as I said, we're going to do an AMA, so get your questions in. So 1.16, what is in 1.16? Well, fair bit. There's not the largest amount of headline features. It's really just a solid kind of polish everything up kind of release. There are a few things worth mentioning. Obviously, Puppet 5 has been out for a little while now. And so we're happy to say that we're fully Puppet 5 compliant even in the installer. So if you're spinning up a new environment and you can try out the installer with Puppet 5, we'd love to know how you go on with that. We do know that we're still waiting on Puppet 5 Puppet server packages for Debian Stretch. So if you're running Debian 9, then there's some issues there, and we're really waiting on Puppet Labs to put those packages out for us. But in all other regards, we're pretty good. Lots and lots of UI changes. We've been moving more and more over to Patternfly, so you'll see things like the Patternfly style of pagination, but a lot of other UI changes as well. There's some improvements in LDAP, there's some improvements in VMware, and we've started to make it easier for plugins to consume things like Webpack, and Andre's going to talk about React for plugins as well in a few minutes. So you can find the release notes on the manual and on the mailing list, as always, and those are linked to from the front page of the website. And go and test it. Let us know. This is one of the biggest things the community does for us. Every single release, you guys are amazing at testing things for us and reporting issues to us. So please do that again. One note right now, I hope it to be resolved in the next couple of days, but our Redmine, our issue tracker, is running pretty slowly right now, which is really bad timing because of the new release, obviously. I've got an issue open for it. I'm tracking it with the people who host it. We hope it'll be resolved fairly soon, but for now, just be patient with it. It will get there. It's not going to lose any data, but it might take just a little bit longer to commit those changes. So, yeah, 1.16, go ahead, enjoy. Obviously, Puppet 5, I'm really happy about. You know, it took us 18 months to get Puppet 4 support last time. We've been a little bit quicker this time, and that's super awesome. So I'm really happy to have that in there, and I'd really like to see how you find it. So go test it. Moving on. The vertical navigation. Now, last time I've got, I can bring it up actually for those people who haven't seen it yet, and there will be some. I'm always reminded, DHH, who wrote Rails, has a great quote. It just says, if you're fed up of saying something for the 1,000th time, there's still someone in the room who's only hearing it for the first time, which is a fantastic quote. So I'm just going to switch out my my screen sharing and show you the demo for those people who haven't seen it yet. And we have loads of time today anyway, so why not? So let's go. Where is it? Here it is. Share. So hopefully you can see this. If this is still live, if you want to play with it, the login is admin and virtnav. One should log in okay. And here it is. So as you can see, we've got vertical navigation on the left, and it doesn't really change anything. Nothing is in a new place. You won't find things not where you're expecting them. The only things to watch out for, of course, is the location and organization is up here, and the user administration menu is now here on the left. Everything else is exactly where you left it. It's just been moved to the left-hand side of the screen. And so we thought, people get really picky about UIs, so we thought we'd do a survey and see how you guys found it. I'm happy to say we have got quite a lot of results. Only I have to find where in my many, many tabs I put the results. Let's see if I can. This, not that one. We'll have to go and get this out of my IRC link or something, aren't they? Yeah. Nope. This is what you get for not practicing before you go on stream. And I have lost it. It's here somewhere, and I can't find it. Right, okay. I'm just going to switch to my IoT for a second and find the link because I'm really, really silly. So here we go. This should work. Hopefully you can all still see what I'm doing. So this was our demo. And I can look at the responses because I'm obviously an admin. And this is the bit I like. 32 responses, 100% yes. Now, I admit 32 people is not the largest sample size, but we only left the survey open for a couple of weeks because we kind of wanted to get on with it and make sure that it gets in and tested and tweaked before we do the 117 freeze. So we're very happy with that. That's a reasonable, it's not a terrible sample size, given that when we make a really big push over like 2 months for a full community survey and we get 200 replies, we're still getting a reasonable number for a quick survey like this. So pretty happy with that. We got a lot of good feedback. Most of this has been incorporated by Amir already. So most people, what I like about this is it's not just a blanket yes. There's a lot of people going yes, but, and that's good feedback, right? That's what you want to hear. So a lot of this has been integrated already. A lot of people saying it's just cleaner, less cluttered. If you watch the demo we did on why we're doing this a couple of months back, this is exactly the point we made, that the horizontal UI was getting cluttered. It was getting difficult to extend, tricky for plugins to work, things like that. So this is looking nice. There's a few little bugs. Most of the bugs are actually in Patternfly, and so we kind of have to report them and wait for Patternfly to fix them and then bring the fixes downstream. But they will get better. And it seems like the results are positive enough that we're going to go and do this. I don't think there's any reason we can say there's any reason to say that it is not mergeable, right? This has been in, to give you the history here, the original pull request for this was opened 11 months ago. It went through about 6 months of discussions, and it really wasn't well liked. Not the fault of the guy writing the code, just, we just didn't have quite the right direction. We weren't quite all on the same page as what we were trying to do. So then we sat down together and we did some demos and we talked a bit, and that really helped to get the people who were really against the vertical navigation to kind of not change their mind, but to get that feedback from them as to why they didn't like it. Because we had a list of reasons of what we were trying to fix, and that was really important, but we clearly weren't fixing them the right way to make people happy. So I'm really pleased by this because it's taken a bunch of people, and I know certain people have voted in the survey who were very much against it to start with, and they've said yes now. So we've obviously done a good job of listening to feedback and improving the design. So I'm very, very happy with that. And I think it's fair to say we're going to get this merged fairly soon. So that's where we're at right now. That's my 2 pieces. So I'm just going to quickly switch back as soon as I find what I've done with my actual browser. Here we are. Right, I'm going to switch back and we're going to go on to our first presenter that's not me. So let me bring up the slides again. Here we go. So first up, we're going to have Andra, and he's going to talk for a few minutes about what we're doing with plugins.
Hi. So today I'll be talking about plugins and how you can start with React in your plugins and what you can do with it. So I will use for my demo Foreman OpenSCAP plugin because it's already set up. And as you can see, I created a Webpack directory in the root of my plugin. And inside the Webpack directory, there is index.js, and then another directory with components and a couple of components inside. So let's take a look at one of my components. It's really a very simple component. I just import React. I just create my component, and the component itself doesn't do anything useful. It just renders some text. The most important thing is the index.js, which looks like this. I import the component registry because your plugin components have to be registered before they can be used. And the reason for this is we have to make sure that the mounting service is aware of the components and knows where to find them. So you import the component registry from the core, and then you import your components that you have written, and you basically call component registry and register your components. You edit the object with name and type. The name is some identifier, and type is your component. This is really all that is needed. You can also register multiple components at the same time. You just use register multiple function, and you pass an array, and the structure of the objects is the same. The name and type attributes are required, and you can pass in optional store and data attributes, which are true by default. The store means that the store will be available for this component, and the data basically tells us that the mounting service should pass some external data to the component. And in your view, if you want to use your component, first you have to make sure that the JavaScript actually loads into the page, because we don't load all the JavaScript into all the pages to make sure that the pages are not too slow. So you have to you have to use this helper and basically ask for JavaScript files to be included in your page, and you use the name of your plugin, which your plugin is registered with, the one that you specify in your engine.rb. Then you create, then this tag is basically a place where the component will be inserted into the page. You give it some identifier, and then you call the mounting service with mount React component helper, and you edit the ID of the component that you want to mount. You edit next parameter is the identifier of the place where you want the component to be displayed, and here you can add some data that will be passed to the component. And this is the policies index view. So if I go to policies index page, then you can see that my React component is rendered down here. This is really just an artificial example to show you how you can use React in your plugins. One more thing is that I said that the component has access to the store, which is true. But unfortunately, right now, the store is not aware of any additional reducers. So if you write your own reducers in the plugin, then the store is not yet aware of them, and you can't really use them. So right now, at this point, all you can do is render some static data. And I had the solution for the reducers. It was a really simplistic one. But we decided we need a more robust solution that would allow us more flexibility. So we decided just go ahead with this part and get it into the develop branch and see how it goes. And the part with reducers is something that needs to be done, and I'll be working on that in the next few days, I hope. Another thing that needs to be done is adding third-party dependencies for your plugins. So if there's some neat library that you would like to use, but Foreman doesn't include it, you will be able to include it yourself. Again, that's another item on my to-do list. I actually submitted a pull request with the change. So if you're curious how that would look like, head over to GitHub and check out the pull request. It's already there, and I'll be glad if you add some comments or possibly test it and do a review. That's basically it.
Superb. Thanks very much. So I don't see any questions for you. Obviously useful for plugin developers. And if you're working on a plugin right now, hopefully that's useful to you. Next up, Sebastian's got something for us, which has been a pretty long requested feature, I think, actually. What's the ticket number for this one? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but
okay.
it's
pretty sure
been
it's
a long
low.
time ago.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's low. So the idea here is, I'm going to steal your content, but the idea here is about proxying Foreman's outbound traffic, right?
Yes.
Go ahead, take it away.
Okay. Have you switched to my screen?
I have.
Okay. One issue that brought up this feature was that when you were behind a firewall where the HTTP proxy, HTTP ports would be blocked, searching for an image on Docker Hub would not work. It would eventually time out and fail and display an ugly error message. The solution for this is that we have now two settings for an HTTP proxy to proxy all those requests that are outgoing from Foreman. And I hope this works now. Come on. It always doesn't work when you want it to work.
Oh, of course. It's live demos for you.
Yeah. Come on. Let's just kill it. Da, 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 da. 3142. Yes. Okay, now hopefully the settings page will come up.
It does take a long time to start these days. Really.
Yeah. I actually switched to Puma so to avoid the blocking and not have to wait for it, but well.
It's blocking anyway.
It's blocking anyway.
When?
And it's failing. Because, yeah, right. Come on.
I love live demo. This is a great way to pad out the content, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Puma. Does this not work? It's dead now.
It does appear to be really, really dead. Or not.
Phew. What's happening?
You can't kill all on a process. You have to use kill.
Thank you.
Probably -9 at this point as well. One dash, yeah.
And the last one to go is 70. And now you should work. Yes, you're killed. Okay.
Let's try that again.
Live demos.
Yes, live demos, love them. It's not live demos, it's live debugging. I've already learned something.
Yes, now we have the settings page, and you can see here the HTTPS proxy setting that will allow you to set a proxy. In this case, I hope the proxy is not down. 8. And if we go back to the containers, the image search should now work as expected and be as quick as a fox. Yes, it works. So there is also another setting that you might have seen, which allows you to also set hosts to which requests should not be proxied. For example, if you have a smart proxy within the network that the HTTP proxy cannot access, you can add the host name for this here, and it will not proxy those requests, but keep them internally.
Ooh.
That's it.
That's really nice. That's a very well thought out extra bit actually about being able to take it off.
Yes, so there was concern that there might be cases where the smart proxy is not available for the HTTP proxy for security reasons, and so you can accept them here.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, even just the case of you only have an outbound proxy. It's like even if it works, why would you send the traffic via an extra hop, right? So
yes.
So yeah, that's really nicely thought out. Cool. That was really cool. That's gonna help a lot of people, I think. I mean, we've got some. I mean. How so is this for everything that goes through Foreman? So would this work for like Catello pulling in content as well?
Yes. So actually, it patches root core libraries and other extension libraries that do the HTTP requests, and adds their proxy option to do the proxying.
Right. Okay. Nice. So anything that's going out through Foreman. So
yes.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I guess actually that's Pulp that's actually doing the pulling down of packages, so it does make it.
There's a different configuration for Pulp.
Yeah. So can still be done. Nice. Oh, Eric's already in with a question, but since he's actually on the call, you just want to say, Eric. He's been muted the whole time. Maybe his microphone's not working. I'll just say it for him. So he says, what if you've got multiple proxies? Can you load balance this? Can you round robin it?
Not at the moment, but there is another PR in the works that will allow a more granular configuration of proxies. So you could say that for requests to EC2, this proxy should be used or not.
Nice. Oh yeah, he's found his unmute, but we'll come back to that. Okay, cool. No, that's good. So it's in the works basically. So yeah, this is the starting point, but there'll be more to come.
Yes. Yes.
Proxies, network infrastructure in general is just messy, right? That's why we do what we do. But it's good. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the sort of scheduled content. So I knew this was going to happen. I knew we didn't have too much today, just the two presenters, and thank you both for that. But I knew we were going to be on the short side. So I thought we could do a bit of a sort of an AMA type situation, but nobody has asked any questions. Nothing that's suitable for an AMA anyway. We had one question from Marco earlier about the vertical navigation, about why it was not on the right when most people are right-handed, to which the answer is nearly every UI I can think of that's going vertical is going vertical on the left. So GitLab, over OpenShift, CloudForms, so on and so on, they're all on the left. And sometimes it's better to be wrong and consistent. So we're consistent. So yes. that is where we are. I've got a couple of people posting vaguely interesting questions in the chat, which I think are just, I don't think they're part of the demo. I think they're just people, because that's the problem, right? We use our IRC channel for the demo, but it's still a support channel while the demo is live. So there's a couple of people asking questions there, but I don't think they're actually part of the demo. They're just asking questions. But they're good questions, so I'll ask them anyway. So someone's asking if it's possible to hook into the notification system in 1.15, say posting notifications to IRC. The answer is absolutely yes. And you can go and look at the Foreman Slack plugin, which does exactly this. So that's a good starting point. Absolutely, that's extensible. Mainly because this is Ruby and you can change anything. So you just use alias method chain to interrupt the notification process and add your own code. Someone's asking about whether or not host rebuild should trigger Puppet certificates being cleaned. The answer is obviously yes, but that's a support question. I'll help that user out after the demo. So with that out of the way, how's that for filler? And with no questions that I can see logged anywhere on the channels that are more sort of in depth that we could go into, I'm going to throw it open to the people who are here. So we've still got Sebastian, Andre, we've got Eric as well. Do you guys have any topics you want to talk about, or shall I pick something out of my bag? Oh, the silence. Okay, fair enough. We've got a few things we could talk about. Talk about things that have been bugging me recently. We could talk about the website, whether that needs to look at. We could talk about community interaction. I was talking a bit with someone the other day about Discourse. I could talk a bit about Discourse, see what people think of that. We could talk about infrastructure, whether anyone's got any more infrastructure they want to donate to us. Like we could use some more Jenkins slaves and things. We could talk a bit about how all our infrastructure holds together. We could talk about technical issues, but since I don't actually write code anymore, I have no idea what they are, so somebody else is going to have to bring those up. What do you guys fancy talking about? This is going to be a really one-sided panel chat if you don't open your mics.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so what's wrong with the website?
Oh, it's just awful. That's not awful. So the problem I have is it's quite difficult to find anything. So a few things that I find difficult. Firstly, the front page is extremely static, whereas I think we should have at least like maybe the headings of the latest entries in the blog or news posts or part of our Twitter, something slightly more dynamic that shows that stuff does actually happen in our project. And here's where you can go for the latest updates. That's number one. Number two, I think the community/contributing thing is all a bit of a mess. Like if I go to the community link, I get to the contributing page. That's not the same thing. And if I want to find where I can join the community, as in have a chat with someone, actually that's under support, which is under documentation. So I think things are a bit badly laid out. I also don't really like the landing pages. I'd much rather we use menus on the front page, because if I'm looking for something and I don't know where I'm trying to get to yet, I'm going to hover over the menus and see what options they are. If I have to click on them and wait for a page to load to see that I was wrong, that's going to get really annoying really quickly. And the final thing is our sponsors page is incredibly hard to find. In fact, I will send some stickers to anyone who can tell me where the sponsors page is without looking. Because last time I needed to go and find the sponsors page, I had to look in the source code to find where it is on the website. I had to grep for it. And I think given that we have some people donating reasonably nice things to us, we've got Rackspace give us a lot, we've got Scaleway, obviously Red Hat paid most of the developers, and a bunch of other people donate hardware to Jenkins and things like that. And it's really hard to find that information, and I don't think that's very fair to them. It should be slightly more front page. So yeah, I have a list of issues with the website, and my question is, do we try and fix these piecemeal, or do we just go the whole hog and just say, it's been like this for 5+ years, maybe it's time to have a rethink? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I'm not getting a sticker, that's for sure. But yeah, definitely.
Oh, there.
You found it. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very big, is it?
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, oh, that's okay. I think those are valid points. I really like the idea with the menus. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, basically, maybe not trying to fix everything at once. Just do it piecewise. And yeah, I think, well, I wouldn't be aware of these problems if you haven't started talking about it, but maybe because I didn't really think about it. But yeah, you're right.
I think most people. So I remember reading a piece of information recently that said basically people give up after about 5 seconds. If the page takes too long to load, or they can't find what they want very quickly, they'll just move on. And I think our front page does a very good job of telling you what Foreman is. It obviously covers a lot very quickly, although the top banner is huge. Unless you're on a really big monitor, you don't actually see very much of the content until you start scrolling down. I think it's fine in terms of the problem we've always had is, what is the website for? Is it a source of information in the sense of, a technical statement, this is what the project does, or is it a source of help for people? Because those two things are different goals, right? And what you design for depends on your goals. And I think that's something we've never really settled, is what we want it to be for. For me, it exists to direct people to the best resources to find out what they want to know. It's never we're such a complex project that it's never on the face of it going to get everything right on the first page. And so it should show an active community and signpost you to where you want to get to next. That's my thinking. I'm just going to quickly hopefully do some screen sharing here and show you, for example, if I go, this was one website I was looking at a little while ago. I'm just going to put these side by side and then I'll screen share. So this is one of the projects that's quite close to us. So this is overt, right? Let me do the screen sharing here. So we need to cancel that and then share the Hangout itself. Wait, Tunnel of Doom. That's not what I wanted to do. Stop. Wrong application. You enjoy that? 70s throwback? Fabulous. All right, there we go. So this is this is this is really freaking me out now because I can't tell which one I'm supposed to be on. Here we go. Right, this is ours. Right, huge banner, and it's very clear about the statement, and I like that. And it's very clear with the started, learn more thing. These should be menus, I think. And then if you scroll, and you can just about see on my huge monitor that there's something else to read. So if you're on a smaller monitor, you won't even see this. And then you can scroll down and get a bit more information, and that's pretty cool. And for those of you who haven't found it yet, here is the sponsors text in really tiny print. So I don't think that's very fair to our sponsors. Now, if I compare that to over, it's very similar. On the front of it, you've still got stuff at the top, and there's still landing pages, actually, if you look. But what I like about it is they've got blog information here. Now, I would actually have that higher up, or possibly on a sidebar or something. But you can actually see what's going on in the community right there on the front page, and I quite like that. And then if I look at something like their community page, it actually is a landing page of all sorts of things, whereas ours isn't. So I think our whole community section needs a complete overhaul, and I think our media page does as well. Like this page here is a complete mess, right? It just needs a rewrite.
Great.
So anyway, I've talked enough. Somebody else. Eric, yeah, I saw you on mute briefly, so if you want to jump in, please do.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, I was saying I don't see anything being shared anymore.
Oh, really? That's weird. It should. Okay, let me try that again. I don't know when it stopped. Is it working now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yeah. So this is our contributing page, which is our community page. Is only about contributing. Whereas if I look at obviously this community page, this is actually a landing page with lots of things where to go next, right? And I could take issues with the layout of this page, but it's still better than ours, right? And then I don't know where I cut out, but if I go back to the home page, as I say, like here, it's like, yes, there's some information and some case studies. Would I put that that high up? I'm not sure I would, but certainly, blog information here, Twitter, community, etc. None of that. Our front page is entirely static, apart from this bit down here, which nobody ever reads, and this bit here, which changes only when we release, which has obviously been pretty much static for 6 months. It doesn't look great. And then obviously something like this page, which is just a complete mess. So whilst our website does its job, I think it is potentially ripe for a discussion about what we do about it. So, okay, I'll stop sharing again now.
I was going to ask, since we've got some resources digging into, UX around our application, do you think we could engage some of them around discussions of what to do about the website?
Yeah, it's worth asking Rox and see whether she or someone else would be interested in helping out with that. But I do think we need to decide what our goals are first as well. So that would be part of it. But yeah, I agree. I think that's probably a good starting point. So yes. So okay. Does anyone else want to comment on that, or shall I pick another topic? I'll probably do one more before we wrap it up, right?
Yeah, well, just one comment related to how you said we have to think about what we are trying to do. Right now, I think we're trying to say what we do and also point users to the help. So maybe that those two things. I'm not saying that it should be one or the other, but maybe we should make it easy for the new users to tell them what we do, and for more advanced users to direct them better to the resources they need or they're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to see better signposting, either at least improving what is on what page, like the landing pages and things, or swapping them for menus. I prefer menus personally, but I could be convinced either way. I don't really mind, but certainly the way in where we put things need to change. And I would love to see more. As I say, more. I hesitate to use the word dynamic because it's a bit overused, but that's what I mean. Like some of our calendar or our blog or our Twitter feed or whatever there, so that people can see it. I know the first question that's going to be is like, do we have any analytics? And the answer is we do. We have Google Analytics on it. So we could look at where people are going and see what they're looking at and stuff, and how quickly they find what they're looking for, and try and do some analysis on that. But it could take a while. Okay. I'm gonna quickly answer a message from Dejan. He's deleted his messages, but I did see them, so I'm going to answer them anyway, because I actually got a very good question, and one that's worth calling out for people who don't know. He asked what the best way to upgrade from 1.12 to 1.15 is, and that's a good question that catches a lot of people out, and so I'll just quickly go over that for people who don't know the answers, because if we've got new people in the community who might be watching this who've only been on, say, 1 or 2 Foreman releases, they might get caught out by this. Because we all know how enterprise works, right? You install something, you don't touch it for 4 years. that's just how it works. The problem is that you can't upgrade in one go. You can't jump directly from 1.12 to 1.15 or any jump like that. You can't jump more than one major release. And people are always quite surprised by that, or quite often are surprised by that. And they can't say, oh, I can't just install the latest packages and go. And the answer is no. And the reason is that it's no is bound up in the way that Rails works. So basically, you write migrations to upgrade the database. Now, most of the time, these migrations are fairly straightforward, right? You add a column, add a table, delete a column, modify the data within a column. This is all fine, and this would work no matter what you do. You could jump multiple versions, and this would be fine. But quite often in those migrations, you have to call some code from within the application. So you might have to ask a host what interfaces it's got so that you can update them. And so as a result of that, you now have to realize that when you call that code, you're calling the code that's on disk right now. So let's say you upgrade from 1.12 and you're running a migration that came in 1.13. But if you've jumped all the way to 1.15, you're running a 1.13 migration using the 1.15 code. And if that has changed significantly, it will bomb. It will break, and the migration can't run. You have to run the 1.13 migrations with the 1.13 code, otherwise it might do unexpected things. That method that it's calling might have been entirely deleted at some later point in time, and it just can't run at all. So because of that limitation, you have to upgrade each major release. And yes, we know it's a pain, but that's why we never delete our repos. You can go all the way back to Foreman 1.0 for certain OSs in our repos and actually get the packages if you need them. And we have had stories of people upgrading from like 1.2 all the way up to like 1.13 over the course of a couple of days, and it can be done. So it should be fine. And I know Dejan said that that's exactly what he did. So this is wonderful. That's exactly the right way to do it. But for anyone who's ever wondered about that question, that's why. It's because you're tied to the code. And unfortunately can't do anything about it.
It's an interesting contrast because we've never said that when we did Catello upgrade instructions. So we have fixed those kinds of issues that you mentioned in our migrations to allow upgrading across versions. So we actually have users that do this, even if it's not the best or correct way.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, but presumably the problem I see there is that you get a massive matrix of potential support. Unless someone comes back to you and says this is broken, you just would never know. I mean, I could test an upgrade all the way from 1.2 to see what breaks, but I'd have to do it for every release we've ever had. For each new release that gets added, it just gets bigger and bigger over time, right?
Potentially, but if you consider the fact that we've lived by the same rule that we support in and n-1. So we support upgrades from in or n-1.
Okay.
Which reduces that matrix.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that makes more sense. Whereas we say we support n and n-1 so that people have time to do that upgrade before it gets too onerous. It's kind of two sides of the same argument, I guess. But yeah, I take your point. And then after that, presumably you'll do the fixes if someone reports them.
Yeah, because most of the stuff we've encountered is because a active record model was being used directly in a migration instead of being redefined. And it has been found to be way safer to redefine the active record model in the migration.
That's really interesting. Perhaps we should consider it. I mean, it does come up from time to time, and people really don't like upgrading Foreman. I mean, I get a lot of comments about this at conferences, and it usually falls almost 50-50 down either side of some people find it really stable, really easy to upgrade, and they love doing it, and they have no problem with it. And the other people know that it is stable, but it's just because of what Foreman does and what it interacts with, like your whole network, upgrading it is scary to them, and they don't want to have to do it if they don't have to, so they leave it as long as possible and then leave themselves with this massive migration path. And it always goes pretty smoothly when they get around to it, but they leave themselves with this huge backlog of work because they're afraid to upgrade it. And I'm kind of interested, like the people who are going to upgrade anyway are going to upgrade anyway, and it won't change them. But I'm like, are we missing a group of the community here who want to do it this way and would prefer to do it this way? Or are we better off keeping our current stance and encouraging them to stay current? And, you know, right now that's what we do, but I don't know. If it isn't a lot of work, maybe we should consider it.
Well, I know that when we approach merging our installers, for example, the upgrade flag that lives in the Catello installer today would get ported. So then the question would sort of become, do we restrict that to the Catello scenario, or do we start making that more of a first-class citizen across the board?
I guess the first question would be how much work is it going to be, but it could be something to start, like not worry too much about very old Foreman versions, but we could start from a reasonably recent one. I think part of this comes down to testing as well, right? And we already know our Jenkins infrastructure is overloaded, and this is yet another test we'd want to run on a semi-regular basis to say, can I upgrade from 1.14 to 1.16? We already do, I think, have an upgrade test that runs 15 to 16, so it's just one extra run, but every job is an extra job that's on an overloaded CI. So something we'd have to consider. Of course, there are plans afoot to change how our system is running to make it a little bit more efficient. Hopefully, if we can get those rolling, we'll have a bit more space for more jobs. So that could be something then. All right, we have 15 minutes left. So does someone want to pick a topic, or shall I pick another one? I know what's going to happen here. You're all going to go silent on me again. Fine. Let's talk about containers. Everyone loves containers. Who thinks running Foreman in a container is something we should spend lots of time figuring out? Hint, it's probably going to happen sooner or later anyway. The whole world is going that way. But the question is there anybody out there watching right now, the 10 people watching live, and if anyone's watching this afterwards, again, come and talk to me with your thoughts. You can grab me an IRC if you want to talk to me privately, or just hit the mailing list and give me your thoughts. But we were spitballing a little while ago, and we talked a bit about containerizing Foreman. And I pointed to another Rails app which does exactly this. Sorry, 1 second. It's not worth muting and unmuting for one cough. I pointed to another Rails app called Discourse. Now, I run Discourse is a piece of forum software, and I run it for a small community elsewhere on the internet. And that is a Rails app with a Postgres database and a Redis backend as well. And the whole thing runs in a single container, which it kind of has its own management tools for rebuilding the image when new versions of the software come out, this kind of thing. And from a user perspective, in this case, I'm not a power user or a developer. I'm just someone who runs a Discourse server. So as a user of that, it's lovely. It's very easy to maintain, and it's very straightforward. And I wonder if people are interested in that and what people think about whether that's a direction that could be fun to play with. Already Brian straight in with a move to Kubernetes. Let's not walk. Let's not run before we can walk. Ours is a much more complicated system, but yeah, who wants containers? Talk about that. Go on, Eric.
Well, I mean, you're asking who wants it. We've done work. We've got stuff merged.
That's true.
I appreciate your run, don't walk, but I have come to the conclusion that we are complex enough that we have to run. We're better off just accepting that we have to run, and starting to work up towards that marathon instead of walking. I haven't been able to touch the work that I started a bit due to other work getting in the way, but I do occasionally go at least run it. So I it's still something I want to see us go towards, and more work put into when we can get some time. That's why I put it on my infra deployment roadmap as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, I remember we did the demo sort of deep dive thing on that a little while ago as well. So I know there's already work done. I'm guessing I'm really asking the people watching and the people watching on the video later their thoughts on it, because I know we're working on it already, and I didn't mean to imply that it had been forgotten about or wasn't valuable. So yeah, sorry, got that wrong. Oh, okay. Sorry, heard your mic open. Thought you're coming back there. So yeah, I guess the walk run thing is interesting. The thing is, our architecture is complex, but Foreman itself is not really. It's a Rails app with a database that we could do or have done, and it's fine. And the reason that's in my head today is I was chatting with someone, and actually, Eric, you were on this email chain, but nobody else knows about this. I was chatting with someone today who is doing a lot of API development, and would really like a sort of an official Foreman appliance that it doesn't have all of the bits and pieces. It doesn't have the smart proxies or the plugins, or it's not got a bind server to talk to. But just in terms of having something from the Foreman project which you could spin up really quickly. He was talking about a Vagrant image, but I mean Docker would be just as good. That he could spin up and just develop against the API for. And I think that has a huge amount of value. It's something we should have done ages ago. And I know you've got a lot of work done on this already. But is that not walking? Is that not the first steps?
Possibly. I just personally, and you can probably guess why it's I swing a particular way. I think it's short-sighted to simplify it down to, oh, it's just a Rails app with a database. Like, we've grown to the point where, yes, there is a thing that is a Rails app with a database, but there is so much more to it and so much more from the community to it that I can't bring myself to think of it in that simple of terms, since I think even a default Foreman installation would include a smart proxy, for example.
True.
You start throwing in plugins, and each plugin adds some various things. You're gonna start adding in a Dynflow service to run async tasks. So even the base is starting to take on more complexity. So that's why I feel like it's better just to accept the more complex setup than to think of the simplified.
Yeah, that's fair. That's entirely fair. And obviously, I know exactly where you're coming from. There's a lot of pieces in that one. So, yeah, it's a fair point. For me, being the sort of person I am, I always like to try and take little steps into things to try and get them working. But you have a point. It's like it would not be in any way fully functional, right? It would be just a toy, and that's not massively useful. I agree. Unless, as I say, there's someone there who wants to do a lot of API development, and for that maybe. But yeah, without the rest of the pieces, it isn't. I really need to go back and revisit where you got to with the stuff we were showing off a few months back, because it's obviously a good starting point. And I'd like to try and push that forward. For me, where I'd like to get to, I think, this is from a community perspective. Obviously, there are other uses as well. I'd love to have something for people to play with. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a replacement for doing package-based installs right now. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles. But I would love for someone to be able to spin up a sandbox environment nice and quickly with an officially produced image. Be that for developing against with your own tooling, or for testing whether or not it works for your environment or whatever. I think that would be really, really good to have. And I would love to see that as like a CI job. So we're pushing out an artifact. It's like, here's a build. You know, I think that would be lovely. But I don't know how far away we are from that.
Yeah, possibly a bit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I figured it wasn't going to be tomorrow, right?
No, and I've considered that as a way to help push it forward, as build a job that routinely is at least building or running some sort of tests. That's actually, I think, the thing that I've been working on when I get a little bit of time is trying to reuse bats, but it's a little bit harder with this setup. But build an equivalent suite of tests that at least verifies the setup.
Yeah.
And then that you'd be able to then, turn that into a bit of a Jenkins job a little easier. But I got a bit. I turned my attention away from containers a little bit to try to work on revamping our existing Jenkins jobs instead.
Which is absolutely necessary as well. So yeah, I think I'd like to. From my perspective as someone who's trying to engage people, right, then I don't really care what it is. It could be Docker, it could be a Vagrant image, it could be a libvirt disk. I don't care. But we need a repeatable thing that people can spin up easily. What we have today, forklift, for example, is fantastic, but you already need the server ready to go. So that's already assuming that you either have an entire sandbox environment to play with, or that you're comfortable setting up some virtualization to run it in, so libvirt or whatever, or just a plain like VirtualBox VM or whatever. To take one of those steps away and just say, here's an image, spin it up, I think would help a lot from a perspective of people being able to play with things. And it does seem to me like, yeah, Docker's the way to do that. Seems more common now to provide a Docker image than it does to provide a Vagrant box. But I don't care what it is, right? I just want people to be able to play with things and tell me what they think. So, but obviously, containers is a thing that's happening across the rest of the industry. So therefore, those two things align really well, which is why I brought it up. Okay. 5 minutes to go. I think that's a good time to wrap up. So a little bit of a mixed bag for you today, but hopefully you enjoyed it. I'd like to thank all the people that were on the Hangout and also the people contributing via chat. Thank you for your contributions. I will share my closing slide as well, because that's always a good idea. There we go. So as always, you know where to find us: YouTube, Twitter. Come and look at our website. You know, we've already said that we'd like to make some changes, but it is still there. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and do take care.